Okay. Okay, so the support group page, which is linked to the schedule page, is the page that I have for all of my classes, where you can go in and record kind of the basic information and I can find your stuff. So in the class that I'm talking to now, which is my Monday, Wednesday afternoon class, I have group alpha and group beta. And I have in group alpha, we have Justin, Chanel Macy, and Kyler. And so we see their names here, and they've already picked Macy as the leader. So the next step will be for them to go in and post and fill out this agenda. We started working on our agenda, but for my other classes, some of you are doing an awful lot of work, like you're overthinking the project. Like I'll notice 1 or 2 people are putting up lots of information and other people aren't putting up any. And so some of the leaders or people that are in charge are really stressing about the group process. And that's part of what this project is about. It's about learning to work together. And if you remember from Professor Rogers' trial, we had some different people in that project. We had Anthony, and we had Sylvie, and we had Donald. And if you remember, Anthony was the leader that just told everybody what he was going to do and kind of set the project up and just did everything himself. Sylvie didn't really like the way Anthony was doing it. She tried to get everyone involved, but didn't really stand up to him in a very good way and didn't do anything very effectively. And Donald basically just didn't do anything. So probably most of you are noticing that you're having these issues in your group. We have leaders, and usually students that are good students will step into that leadership role. And they sometimes feel compelled to do the work. They put the deadlines out from the charter, and you all know that you're group graded. And then you really stress about, well, why aren't my other group members contributing? And so what do you think you can do as a leader if the other group members aren't contributing? And you don't have to throw anyone under the bus in your groups, but just in general, like if you're having that problem, what do you think, you know, say that was in your workplace or something, what would you do? Kyla, what would you do if you were the leader and people weren't participating?
Maybe ask them what we can do to get them to participate.
Okay, great. Yeah, you'd probably send out multiple emails requesting their participation, probably ask them why they weren't. You might want to figure out if the reason they're not participating is 1, they don't care, 2, they have too much on their plate, which I think the person that is dropping, that was their concern. They didn't want to make any difficulty for the group, plus they were overwhelmed. So you can find out, you know, what is the reason? Are you behind? Is there too much work? Sometimes the reason is that the person doesn't know how to do the work. So in that case, you can try to explain. Now, just because you're the leader doesn't mean you have to explain the project to them. You can ask another group member. You could say, you know, Kyla, you could say, Kyler, you know, I need you to explain this to my group member and kind of help them, because I noticed, you know, you seem to know what's going on, you know, so you can ask someone, you can delegate authority. The other thing as a leader you can do is you can communicate with me, because while I have told you I will be giving a group grade, there are reasons that I will step in or change the grade based on that other person's response. So if I feel like you and your group members have really reached out and tried to get that person to communicate, and then you maybe had a meeting with me and discussed like, well, this person isn't communicating what's going on. Maybe I've reached out to that person too and tried to get a response and maybe didn't get a response. This would be a typical thing at work. You would go to your supervisor, kind of communication is key. Let them know what's going on. Try to get some resolve on the problem. And again, back to the charter, the main reason we've done the charter is to make rules for what happens if people don't communicate. You could have, as a group, and you can still do this if you want to change your charters, go in and say, hey, if the person doesn't submit their research by this date, we're not going to allow them to communicate, which basically means, or participate. That really means they're going to fail the class or have to take an incomplete or work something out with me. But if you've legitimately tried and reached out to that person, you can't just take it on 100% as your responsibility. You're going to do everything a leader is supposed to do. And if you've read about the leadership role, you know that a lot of leadership role is about delegating and making sure people understand their tasks and they're participating in ways that mean effective communication. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So any questions about that? Now, group members, just because you're not a leader doesn't mean that you just sit back and let the leaders do all the work. I'm sure if you're participating actively in the group, that the group leader's probably talking to you about the problems that they're having with the other group members that aren't participating. And so you can also step up and offer to call or contact those people and help them and get them to participate. You can also talk with the leader about what do you think is the best way to move forward on this given our situation. You can come to me together with the leader. All of those kinds of things would really amount to effective communication. And we hope that groups will participate. And I'm sure that groups where everyone's participating and meeting and coming together with the research and the discussions, those people are probably enjoying group process. I get a lot of people that have taken my class before and they say, I hate group work. It just never works out. One person ends up doing all the work and the other people don't show up. And that's why I'm teaching this lesson, is to teach people about group process. Because one thing you'll learn, for example, if you are a leader that just wants to do all the work instead of delegate authority, when you get into your career, people will just load you up with work and you'll have a lot of work all the time and you won't have any understanding of how to get other people on your team to be team players with you. So those are some of the issues that come out in this project, and I'm sorry they're frustrating and difficult. So any questions? And we can keep them general since I'm recording this. We don't need to use any names, but any issues the groups might be having or questions about that whole process? Okay, so the next thing is a lot of people overdo it, and that's okay. A lot of people are doing a lot of work, really, working to make this a really good project. And the only issue with that is that this project, again, is a lot about oral communication and what we do. And so maybe you put 20 pieces of research into the outline and it's really stellar research and it's really awesome. And then you come to the group project and you say, well, all I have to do is read my research. That is not going to get you a good grade. What I'm really grading is your group's ability to discuss and analyze that research. And so putting more in there isn't necessarily better, but I think what's really going to help you is having everyone have 2 to 3 pieces of really good research and everyone having read everybody else's research and everyone understand the roles that they're playing in the group so you can discuss it. So I thought what we'd do today is we'd practice with one of those sample outlines. Well, let me go over the things that I'm looking for in the group. let me check in with people first. Andrew, what do you think your role is as a leader for this group? Why are you leader, and what do you think is your responsibility here?
My main role is to just kind of keep tabs on everyone, like see who's putting in, who isn't.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there just because your
And
connection isn't so good, but you're right on the mark. Keep tabs on people, kind of encourage them, see who's participating, motivate them to participate, and organize that. That is a leadership role that happens during this process where we're putting it together. Macy, what do you think are some of the leadership roles that you'll play during the discussion?
I think it's just like starting off the conversation, what we're gonna do, what we're gonna talk about, and what we should be getting done. Same
Okay.
thing like Andrew said, like getting people on track.
Okay, keeping people on track. And so that involves who's speaking, whose turn is it? Sometimes we have groups where one person is more knowledgeable than everyone else, and the leader needs to make sure that the shy people or the people that aren't talking have a turn, and that they're challenged. Like they might just say one or two words or not explain their research, so you can jump in as a leader and say, well, what do you mean by that? When you read about that, can you tell me what that article said? Can you give me more information? So getting the shy people to talk, reminding members to ask questions, to reminding members to cite sources or analyze other people's research. So those are things that I'm looking for. Also supporting people, saying things like, Vanessa, I'm so glad you're in my group. That was really great. I'm glad you did that. So those support roles. Those are not leadership alone duties. Everyone in the group should be doing the support roles and making sure that sources are cited and information is analyzed. It just kind of falls on the leader to direct it. And leader, another thing that falls on you sometimes is keeping time, because I really don't want these to go more than, say, an hour and a half. And so actually an hour and 10 minutes for this class, because we have to get it all in one class period. For the other classes, I really don't want the videos to go longer than an hour and a half. So make sure that you have to get through all of the agenda. And so the leader may want to delegate a timekeeper. And that's just someone, because the leader has a lot of things to take care of, like picking people to talk and summarizing what people have said and making sure people are asking questions. Then you might want to have someone else who thinks about, okay, we're going to do 10 minutes. We're going to spend 10 minutes on the harms, 10 minutes on the causes, 10 minutes on the past actions, 10 minutes on the brainstorming. Probably each section should take about 10 minutes. So that would be 50 minutes. So that should probably be your goal. However, the last two steps may take a little bit longer, the part that doesn't have any research. And if you've watched the video on how to use the criteria and pick a solution and write on the whiteboard, you can kind of see why. We probably won't get to that together today, but there is a video on that everyone should watch. Okay, any questions or comments so far? Another responsibility of group members is to make sure that you've done research and that you understand it all, and that you're ready to really talk about it, not just read your quote, but to say what it means, and maybe how does it fit into the harms or the causes. Or maybe I read 3 other articles on this and they basically said the same thing, but I thought this quote was the most valuable quote. That's one reason you don't want to have so much research. It's better to be able to talk about the few, everyone brings 2 harms, 2 causes, and 2 past actions to the table. You want to know that research really well. And since you'll all see the outlines in advance, you'll be able to read each other's research. You're all researching on the same topic, so it's likely that you will have come across similar ideas when you did your own research. So any questions on the research? So don't make it too hard. Don't feel like it has to be an exhaustive look at everything. Let's look at, okay, this is from lesson 6. Can you all see the page I have with links to different skills? Okay, so you can see that one of the skills, and we did this in the persuasive speech, is citing your sources. And that just means orally telling us where the research came from. Researching, organizing, I've pretty much put the organization out there if you follow the format in the agenda that we linked to earlier. Supporting ideas. That would be like saying that, well, actually, let's go through them and then I'll demonstrate them in the other document. I'll give you some examples, but it just basically means somebody claims something and you've provided support. So we did that in the persuasive speech. Also building credibility. Anytime you can link what you learned or why you're credible to talk about that would be great. Some of the skills that are also discussed in lesson 7 on interpersonal that I'm looking for are perception checking. And that simply would be something like, Macy, I heard you say that your group has already completed the charter. Is that correct?
Yeah, somewhat. I think so.
Okay, so it's basically just saying, this is what I heard. Did I hear you correctly? This particular link goes into more details on how to do perception checking that you might find more helpful for if you're arguing with someone or have interpersonal situations that are a little more detailed. But I think, I'm sorry, I just explained paraphrasing, not percept. No. Yeah, perception checking is when you ask somebody if they heard you correctly. Paraphrasing is really similar, but paraphrasing asks you to restate it to the other person. Let's do paraphrasing next. So let's say that Macy said to me, well, actually, Macy, why don't you give me a quick summary of what happened during your charter meeting?
I'm not sure. We talked about it. We answered the questions together.
Okay, so what I heard you say is during your meeting, you guys worked together well. Is that correct? So it's basically taking the main ideas out of what somebody said and then asking them, kind of restating them. I also kind of checked to see if that was correct, which is not always done in paraphrasing, but it can be done. Supporting others, that would be like, Kyler, I'm so glad you're in my group. You're a good contributor and I like the research that you brought forward. Specific language, that has to do, this is a harder skill, don't get too hung up with it, but it's finding the right words to explain the concepts that you're trying to explain. Analyzing and evaluating means that you're looking at the research and you're saying, they claim this in the article, but I'm not sure that it's right. I found some other articles that maybe disagreed with this information. Asking questions, that would be, we were talking about how much trash is on Kauai, and I heard you say there was a metric ton. Well, how much is a metric ton anyway? And maybe someone in the group member might know that. We're not going to be using our computer to look things up, but we're going to use the knowledge that we have to make our best guess at that. I mean, you can look stuff up before the discussion, but there would probably be no way of anticipating what questions a group member might ask. Solving problems, influencing others, gaining and holding attention, we've learned about already. Building credibility, we learned about in persuasion. Organizing thoughts, we learned in persuasion, and supporting ideas we have. And of course, we'll be grading all of the nonverbal and verbal elements of this. So let's go through a couple of these in the sample outline. See if I can find it. All right. Any questions on those? Maybe since I don't have another document open, you can help me with some of those skills. So this was a sample outline from fall 2012. We went through the 5-part introduction. The attention getter is pretty much the same as we've learned about in persuasion. You want to make your topic really relevant. So this particular topic is harmful waste. You guys have all read this, but I'll just do a different attention getter here. I might say something like, how many of you went to the beach last week? Did you notice that there were a bunch of plastic bottles down by Baby Beach in Poipu? And it just really made the beach look ugly. And I was kind of worried about all of our marine life there, and how bad is that toxicity from the toxic waste. So you just want to make your topic, you want to draw people in. I didn't really see plastic bottles in Poipu, so don't worry about that if you did, but that's just an example. Okay, when you introduce the panel, you can the leader can introduce everyone, or the person can introduce themselves. So the leader can say, we're going to introduce our panel now. I'm going to have each member introduce themselves. What I'm really wanting to hear is why the panel member is interested in this topic, why you picked it as a group. So let's say that I'm on this panel and I say, hi, I'm Sharon Milan. I was really interested in this discussion because last time I went swimming at Salt Pond, I stepped on a plastic bottle and it was all covered with algae and it was really gross. And I never really thought we had this problem with plastics and toxic waste on Kauai. But after that happened, I started thinking about other times that I've seen it. So I decided to research it, okay? And sometimes the panel members are going to have a background in, if you've got somebody that, if you were doing teen pregnancy, for example, you might have a friend that got pregnant at 15 or, something like that. So you just say what your relationship to it is, or the leader will say it for you. Then the statement and the problem, what can be done to help reduce toxic waste. This is the topic that I've approved, and it needs to be stated. Remember, there were all those rules for selecting your question, and I've approved it. So you need to use the actual approved one. And this is to keep everybody on track for what are we really discussing. So some of the other stuff that you see here is just material that's extra that I'm not really looking at. I don't see this on this particular sample outline, but I'm also looking for a preview. Today we will be discussing the harms, the causes, the past actions. We'll brainstorm some of our own topics, run them by a criteria, and finally we'll come up with a solution and implement that for you guys. Okay? Any questions so far? All right, so this part of the outline, you can see here what I'm looking for is that everybody in the group has posted. So you can see that the person who was green and blue, they've posted quite a bit more than everyone else, which isn't a big deal on the outline so long as everyone's posted. It just takes up more space, and I don't really care how long they are or how short they are as long as the material is there. But I would be concerned about the person that is in the light pink, in the pink color, because one, they don't have a source citation, and 2, they've only posted once. So you can see the other ones, like the blue's done way more than they need to, but we've got source citations, you know, couple there, and then we've got another one down here. Obviously, they've read these research projects and they're going to talk about them. What I don't want to hear is I don't want to hear the blue person just read everything on here. I want to hear the blue person maybe talk about 2 of the things that they've posted. And then I want to hear people analyze it. So let's talk about subpoint C, number 6, plastic bags. So let's say they give this piece of research and they say it takes 450 to 1,000 years for plastic bags to break down. Plastic in the marine environment never fully degrades. And I got this from sierraclub.org. And that's what I want to hear the person say. Now, that person can then go on to analyze and say, well, I read 4 other articles that said it was 150 years. So I think maybe the Sierra Club is a little bit saying that it takes longer for plastic to break down than it actually does. So they could go on and extend themselves, or someone else in the group could say, how long, that sounds like a long time. Does it really take 450 years? And then anyone in the group can answer that question. Someone else could say, well, I disagree with that. There were some other articles that I read that said something different, that it didn't take quite as long, or maybe it took longer. What else could we do with that? You know, we've got this, what else could we do in terms of analyzing, asking questions, paraphrasing, or any of those? Sean, what do you think? What might you ask your group if you wanted to ask questions or provide further analysis on that?
On our topic or the plastic bag topic?
On the plastic bag topic, like, you know, she just gave the piece of research that said it takes between 450 years to 1,000 years for plastic bags to break down. And I know you haven't done research on this topic, but just what kind of questions or analysis might you provide if somebody said that and you were in this group?
Maybe a rhetorical question like, why do we keep making plastic if plastic takes 450 years to decompose?
Okay, good. That's a good question. Remember, we're in the harms, so you're actually making the harms greater because, you know, it's a good question to think about, why are we doing it? And, or you could even say in the causes, we're going to talk about why we're still making plastic, right? Because it's really, it's harmful that we're doing it, but your question is why? How about you? Let me see. I can't see you guys here. How about you, Chanel? What kinds of questions might you ask?
Where in the environment is like the plastic bags most prominently in?
Okay, good. Okay, and then someone else in the group could answer that. So again, we're asking questions. How about paraphrasing? Someone want to try paraphrasing it? It takes 450 to 1,000 years for plastic bags to break down, and plastic in the marine environment never fully degrades. That was according to the Sierra Club. Can someone paraphrase that for me? How about you, Vanessa?
Maybe plastic in the ocean never breaks down, and it takes a very long time for plastic bags.
Okay, great. So yeah, did I hear you say it takes a long time for plastic to break down? That's a great paraphrase. Okay, let's try another one. We'll go into causes. Okay, so what causes toxic waste to be a problem? People are too lazy and selfish, and they don't throw away their trash in the trash can. What might you talk about if someone brought that up? Now, there's no source citation here, and that's okay. There's, things. This is probably a really valid point. This, in my opinion, this is a very valid point of why we have a lot of toxic waste laying around. It's a big cause, right? That people are lazy and selfish and they don't throw their trash in the trash can. So go ahead, any of those things, questions, paraphrase, supporting each other, analyzing, analysis, evaluating. Someone go with that topic. Harley.
I don't know. Off of this, what they're saying here.
Yeah, ask a question, paraphrase it, analyze it. Do something with that line. What we're getting at is what causes all this toxic pollution, in our oceans. And someone in your group has just said the main cause of this is that people are lazy and they don't throw their trash. So maybe give an example, or did you find other stuff, or ask a question about it, or thank them for bringing it up because it was such a wonderful reality of what causes pollution.
I would say maybe we're not properly disposing of things.
Okay. So you would say, I agree, Sean, that was a great idea. And I don't think we're properly disposing of things. Does anyone else in the group think that, do you guys know people that aren't properly throwing away their trash? Does anybody in the group know someone that doesn't throw their trash away?
Tourist.
No names, but yeah. So I'm sure everybody knows somebody that doesn't throw their trash away. I know for myself, this isn't marine trash, but driving up the Waimea Canyon Road and seeing all the junk cars and the trash on the side of the road, it makes me want to cry, How about, Kyla, try complimenting someone in your group for subpoint C there. Someone just said subpoint C about being lazy.
That's a very relevant point towards our argument.
Awesome. Great job. So a lot of grading for this project is on doing these kinds of things. Past actions kind of goes the same way. Again, we don't have any pink. We have someone put the E in there in pink, but nobody put the research in. We can see here in this group discussion that the person who was pink probably wasn't participating in doing their research and homework like the rest of the group members. It looks like everyone else in this group was really participating and had the outline ready to go. But you can see that it's not the outline that's going to get the grade. It's that this material goes in here. You've read about it, you understand it. You've got a plan for how you're going to support people, analyze, evaluate, ask questions, paraphrase, and all of those good group communication skills that you've learned about in chapter 6 or in lesson 6, and all of the great interpersonal skills that happen in lesson 7. And we'll also be looking at how groups work together, the balance of communication, the oral, the use of gestures, eye contact, enthusiasm, passion. I think one of the best things you can do in preparing for this is really understand your topic. It's not just dumping more research in here and making a better outline. It's really looking at what everybody's brought to the table, which honestly, you could probably find this research pretty quickly. Find your 2 source citations and then do some general reading on the topic. That will be a much better prep than putting 10 pieces of research on here and saying, okay, this is great. It's all on the outline, because that's not really what it's about. Okay, I think that's probably enough for today. I'm going to overload your brains. We can talk about brainstorming, possible solutions, and implementation next class, but there are some videos up there too. So I may not record another one of these sessions, but thank you guys for letting me record this. Are there any other questions about the outlining? Oh, just notice here, this group has put their brainstormed ideas in here, but I don't require those on the outline. You can come up with that during the discussion. So there is no need, just put the topic brainstorming up there. And then there's also nothing that gets put on the outline before the discussion for possible, for the solution meeting the criteria or implementation. What I want to see is you go through this process during the discussion. Okay, any questions before I turn off the recording? Uh-oh, let's see. Oh, okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.